Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Fireside Chat. I am Kelsey Woodworth, the Content Marketing Manager at GiveSmart, and I have with me today to talk about associate committees and junior boards, Megan Mangal, who is the co-chair for Hearts of Gold Associate Committee here in New York City.
Hi, so happy to be here.
So I guess if you could just to kind of like, before you get into too much about your role with like Hearts of Gold, explain to us an associate committee, a junior committee. Are they the same thing, or?
Yeah, so in my experience, Hearts of Gold, it's labeled as the Associate Committee. I am actually very familiar with Big Brothers Big Sisters. They have a Young Professional Committee. So the naming of it can be a little bit different. I do know there is a junior board because it's basically the junior of the board of directors, implying that the people might be younger. The obligation is much less financially than what would be for a regular board of directors. So the naming, it can vary, but usually they're all pretty much the same foundationally.
Okay. So when you say they're younger, is there an age limit to being on a junior board?
So for us, especially this past year, we really opened up our membership to a wider audience. And before it was just kind of word of mouth. It ended up being people that were within the young professional group, I would say probably like mid 20s to mid 30s. But this year it opened up a bit more, and it really is just people who are interested in making an impact and maybe, don't have $50,000 lying around in order to donate and be on the actual board of directors. Or maybe they want to make more of an impact on the volunteer level. Yeah, so it really worked out. I would say our age range went up a little bit this year, which is really nice to see because it's good to have nice diversity on the committee.
Would you say like under the age of 30, or?
I would say most people are in our group right under the age of 30,
Okay.
and then we do have a few people who are 30s and 40s actually.
Okay, cool. And so having a regular board and a junior board, I mean, do you work more directly with the nonprofit itself, or are you working with the actual board? Kind of like, how does the associate committee's role, fit in conjunction with the actual nonprofit?
Yeah. So for us, we do work directly with the internal team at Hearts of Gold. We actually haven't had much interaction with the board of directors, and that's one thing that we want to focus on this year. So actually, my co-chair from last year, our position terms for co-chairs are 2 years. His term ended, and he's actually joining the board of directors since he is more financially viable, and he's also the son of the founder, so he's been involved in the organization for so long. So he's joining the board and then is going to be our liaison, actually. So he'll go to regular board meetings and then share that information with us. And this is the first time we've ever had that sort of relationship with the actual board of directors. I do know some board young associate committees, they have more interaction, but I would say we kind of exist separately and just work directly with the internal team.
Mm-hmm. And so does we'll get to kind of the events that you guys do in a bit, but does that feed into sort of the overall fundraising goal for the nonprofit, or would you say your goals are separate?
I would say because we're still a younger associate committee, I believe this is like our fourth official year. And then the first 2 years before I was a part of it, it was maybe 6 to 8 members. So it was what on a much smaller scale. Our goal for this past year, so 2019, our goal was, I believe, $50,000, and then our stretch goal was 75,000. And we actually got a really great corporate sponsorship that actually came in. So we came in at like 70,000, I think, for this past year, which is really amazing. And the year before, I think we were probably at like $20,000.
Okay.
And so I don't believe Hearts of Gold has changed kind of the way that they function and depend on donations financially because of the existence of our group, but we're hoping to get in a direction that we know the associate committee will bring in this many dollars per year, or this goal is very reasonable, the $50,000 to $70,000. Hearts of Gold knows they can count on this money. So it has been an interesting sort of way to figure out, because we do have a $1,000 give get minimum for each member, but we're trying to focus on in-kind donations or corporate sponsorships. Sometimes we just have to focus on who can volunteer at events, and you don't have to give a financial donation in order to be involved.
And so because kind of these junior boards, associate committees, however you want to call it, are kind of on the rise, and I don't know, are you seeing a lot of organizations have them, or they don't have them really?
I would say I would say in my experience, from just knowing certain nonprofits, I would say that it is not as common in
Mhm.
my experience. I would say it is becoming more common. I think the tough thing that a lot of nonprofits and the hurdle that they have to cross in order to do this is they need to know someone who can kind of lead the initiative of starting
Mhm.
it. For Hearts of Gold specifically, like I mentioned, the son of the founder, he works at Google. He's in his late 20s, and he had a lot of friends that were interested in getting involved, and so that kind of kickstarted
Got it.
what turned into the associate committee. And so that's a very unique situation. Obviously not everyone is able to have that sort of relationship, but I do think that it's something can start off with passionate
For
volunteers
sure, yeah.
and finding a way to help them feel really grounded in the mission, and then they're able to start their own sort of meetings. And it could just be lead volunteers get together, and then suddenly it evolves into a type of associate
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say because, I think it's kind of a new thing that a lot of organizations are exploring, and
Hmm.
so, there's not as much set in stone, whereas you might kind
Yeah.
of going into, like, setting up your regular board for the nonprofit is kind of more, "Okay, we do X, Y, Z, this is what we should expect." And so your experience being on this associate committee, what are some things you guys have experimented with? Like, a couple of things, like,
Hmm.
what's working, what's not working?
Yeah, so I would say this past year was a really big experimentation year,
Mhm.
and I think it really did work out. We're still learning and getting our feet wet with a few things, especially as we figure out who can commit certain time, certain money throughout the year. But this past year, we started doing more scalable events, is what we've been calling them. And so basically, we found two of our members had relationships with bars in our city, and we had a happy hour night where 10% of the profits from that night were donated from the bar to Hearts of Gold directly.
Mhm.
And then we invited our networks to come to this happy hour. So it was more of a fun after work function, but then still what you're buying is getting donated to the
Yeah.
organization. So we did two of those events. And then another event that we did was we another one of our members had a relationship with a workout studio, and so we paid the normal membership to come and take the class at that studio, but then the studio donated 10% of the profits from that
Cool.
specific class to Hearts of Gold
Mhm.
directly. And so those only brought in maybe $2,000 total, if that. I don't know the exact numbers, but it is on a smaller scale, but it's still a great chance of building community, raising awareness for the nonprofit and its mission especially, and then also bringing members together. So that way, people who are millennials that maybe can't donate as much are still getting the awareness of Hearts of Gold and its existence, and then can one day maybe turn into much bigger donors.
Yeah, and I often think about that too. It's kind of, we're in our late 20s, and if, we might not be dropping money to go to a gala, every few months or
Hmm.
something, but we are going to workout classes, we are going to happy hours, so we might
Yeah.
as well be going to those that are benefiting a nonprofit if they're kind of things that we're already, doing in our
Hmm.
everyday life, which is why I think that maybe like runs and walks and stuff are
Yeah.
successful. Even though I'm like personally, I'm just like, I don't know who would pay, not pay. I know you like fundraise to run a marathon, but it's just like crazy to maybe think, oh, I have to run a marathon and pay $1,000.
Hmm.
Like, so anyway, that's a different
Yeah.
fireside chat that maybe I'm not a good fit for. But and so yeah, so those events are, yeah, I think they've proved to be successful, and it's good to
Hmm.
kind of test different things. And I think that
Yeah.
it seems like having associate boards and committees kind of gives nonprofits that experience. Like, would you say it's kind of helpful to help, like, okay, you guys do the experimenting, let us know kind of what
Hmm.
works, and because that's
Yeah.
not tied to the overall fundraising goal, it's okay. Like, if
Yeah.
something doesn't work, was there
Yeah.
something that you guys tried that you were like, probably not going to do that again?
I would say I would say we have to figure out better for the workout class, because it did end up being a little bit more extra work on our end, because we had to have a specific form that people filled
Yeah.
out, and then we had to give their information to the workout studio. And the point of having these scalable events is that we can legitimately scale them, and then they can even exist without one of the members and then one of the co-chairs, me for example, having to be intimately involved with what exactly is going on with the planning of that event and that
Hmm.
night, just in addition to us actually supporting what Hearts of Gold needs from us, which is their signature events throughout the year, and volunteering there and providing support there. um, I will say too, we it's very easy, and this happens in any situation, But I do think it's very easy to happen, especially when volunteers are involved, because all of us are just volunteering our time. Is
Yeah.
we come up with these ideas, they don't actually come to fruition because we can't give the time commitment. It's someone's very passionate about it, but then they get really busy at their regular job, and we're not able to actually follow through with those. And so our focus for this year is to pick what's more important to us. So if we don't want to dedicate time to planning a workout class, then we just nix that completely and focus on that we created a new event at the end of the year in December called $25 for 25 years. So let's focus on doing that event and putting all of the power that we have there, instead of sprinkling out our commitments throughout the year and maybe not following through as well as we could be
Yeah.
on basically spreading ourselves too thin, I would say.
Got it. And so coming back to the committee itself, like who organizes, who's organizing this planning? Who organizes your meetings? Is there someone from Hearts of Gold that oversees the committee, or are you guys pretty autonomous?
Yeah. We are very autonomous, I would say, mostly because Hearts of Gold is just 4 full-time staff members.
Okay.
And
it's pretty small.
Yeah, so it's very small, and they're supporting a store, which is basically a thrift shop, and then as well as several different programs that run in different homeless shelters throughout New York City. And so they're already very slammed with all of the work that they need to be doing in order for Hearts of Gold as an organization to run. However, like I mentioned, I've been to Big Brothers Big Sisters Young Professional Committee, and it's amazing because they're a bigger organization. Their Young Professional Committee is much larger. It's like several hundred people, I think.
Oh, wow.
And there is not a financial commitment because they just want people to be involved whenever they have the time for it. And it's so important for them to have the volunteers. And it's a mix of people who are big brothers or big sisters, and then people who are just interested in being a member.
Got it. So it's structured a bit differently because there's also no financial responsibility.
Exactly.
How many people are on the Big Brothers Big Sisters Associate Committee?
I would say it's maybe 150 at its strongest.
Oh, okay,
but
wow.
When I went to the meeting, there was probably 30 people there. And our committee itself is 16 people.
Okay.
But like I said, we have the financial commitment. But with Big Brothers Big Sisters, they do have their events person, or both events people. They come to the meetings because so much of what they do, they need the Young Professional Committee support, and they have to work a lot more in conjunction. For us, it's just that we have relationships with the internal Hearts of Gold team members. We'll reach out to them via phone calls or emails whenever we need them. But we do have to wait for Hearts of Gold to tell us exactly what they need, and then we can act on that, which is why we do want to make sure that we have our own fundraising events outside of what they do, because we don't want to burden them with our events. And then we also want to be sure that we're doing our own fundraising outside of what Hearts of Gold is doing, and then still supporting Hearts of Gold as well.
Yeah. So outside of events, I know you and a couple of other people who serve on junior boards. What other kind of things do you guys bring to the table aside from just events? Are people helping with like social or? Yeah.
So this past year we went through as a committee and just said, these are the things that we could be working on, but who has certain strengths or passions that they would like to see this through? And, we're all there at the very foundation to help homeless women and children in New York City. But as we look around and see all the things that associate committees can help with, it's also too a portfolio builder for a lot of people. And it is like a very good stepping stone for getting more involved in the community, but then also for whatever they're trying to accomplish in their own lives. And so we really do like to make sure that if someone has a specific interest, we can see how that comes in with Hearts of Gold. So someone's passion is they're a photographer on the side, and so they want to do a photo project with the homeless moms and the kids in the shelter system. And obviously there's a lot of sensitivities that goes with that. So they have to work very deeply with internal Hearts of Gold team. But that was someone being like, I love taking pictures. I think this could be a really powerful project.
Especially for storytelling purposes.
Exactly. Yeah. And Hearts of Gold does struggle with storytelling because they don't have a full-time social or communications person. And they do have someone part-time, but, the part-time person couldn't come to one of the events last year. So one of the associate committee members stepped in and did the Instagram stories for the day.
Well, and that's why I think talking more about associate committees and things is important, because most nonprofits, I think, unless you are a big national organization, chances are you're going to run into that where a person who is like so crucial to so many things like storytelling is part-time, or things come up and they can't make it, or maybe they're just a volunteer,
Mm-hmm.
or even if they are a full-time staff, maybe they're just one person, and
Yeah.
you have to pick and choose which projects will take precedent. And
Yeah.
so I think that's a really good point too, where it's not just necessarily like kind of beyond fundraising what
Mm-hmm.
else they do.
Yeah, and I think for nonprofits who maybe do already have a good volunteer base and want to see something like this come to fruition, I think making sure that it's easy for people to get involved in and there's no financial aspect to it makes it
Mhm.
very easy and accessible for people. But I do think that once you put them in a label of something like junior board or associate committee, people do feel a lot more accountable and realize that some things will not get done if they don't say that they're, or if they don't actually follow through with it. And like I said, it is difficult with people who are part-time, who are volunteer, to make sure that it works with their time schedule. But it's really amazing what the group can accomplish when we come together and say, like, this is what my timeline looks like. I would be able to help here, here, and here because I know my limits. I know what I can do. And then I feel like I do have a lot more ownership and power in making sure this, like I said, comes to fruition and becomes very successful.
Yeah. So thinking sort of again from like a building the committee standpoint, I know that the person who started this junior committee, his mom founded the
Mm-hmm.
organization, and so of course he had a close tie. What would you say are some of his or anybody else who like really like, and yourself included, the people who lead the committee? What would you say to someone who's maybe looking to start an associate committee?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what kind of like personality traits, skills, what should organizations be looking for as they start to build out their
Yeah.
associate committee?
Yeah, I do think the energy is very important. I
Mhm.
think even when I have conversations with people who are interested in joining our associate committee, that energy is there. And it's usually, I'm so excited to learn more and I'm so excited to figure out how I can get involved. I think that's just the most important thing from the start is they know what your mission is, they're really excited by it and excited by figuring out a way to help. And then what you can do is shape that energy into, oh, it makes sense for you to be a volunteer, it makes sense for you to be on our associate committee, oh, it makes sense for maybe you can step into a part-time or a full-time role. And I think building that relationship, so like I said, they do feel some sort of they do feel a stronger connection to you
Mhm.
and your mission, and then are able to actually commit their time and their energy to what you need from them.
Yeah, definitely. And I know I saw a post, I don't know if like Forbes shared something, but
Mhm.
Morgan Stanley has, or I think it was actually on their blog, but they encourage their younger employees
Yeah.
to get involved and sit on junior boards. And so I think maybe if you're even like looking for a place to start to
Mhm.
build out a junior board, like a lot of bigger financial institutions are
Yeah.
encouraging their employees to get involved. And just thinking from like purely from a donor perspective, like those people are eventually probably going to end up being some of your bigger supporters. And not that that's what matters, but those are communities you can tap into.
Mhm.
Um, Word of mouth, I guess, and through
Yeah.
your volunteers. What are some other channels that you would suggest like looking for to
Mhm.
help build out that committee?
Yeah, we actually had a conversation with a group called Cari Club last year. It's CARI Club. And I can't exactly remember where they're based, or I mean, obviously we're in New York, and so we have a lot of resources like that that's very easy to get a hold of. I'm not sure if they're countrywide, but basically they have an application system for people who are interested in joining a junior board in
Mhm.
general, and then they match you with your organization. And I think that they just build those relationships with the nonprofits. You're able to post on their website. And
Mhm.
then if anyone's interested, they have a way to reach out to you specifically.
Mhm.
And so those are people who have decided they want to get more involved. This is the website that they found to figure out a way to do that.
Mhm.
And they help them pair with the organization. Um, One thing that we're going to do for possible new member recruitment is I know of an email list that sends out nonprofit job postings.
Oh,
It's actually called Word of Mouth. And she also, the woman who runs it, she also posts different like fellowship opportunities and then volunteer opportunities.
mhm.
And so I was thinking of reaching out to her and saying, like, would you mind putting this in the email for the people
It's
who
a good
get it?
idea.
They're obviously very like
Yeah.
minded, even though they might be searching for a job specifically, they might see a volunteer opportunity and really like that.
Mhm.
Um, we also have one of the people in our committee has a connection to a different sort of job posting email list. And then that's how we got about 5 of our new members last year, was just through that one posting.
Yeah.
And we do have a bit of a vetting process. It's just a casual conversation with 2 of the members. And so with me as co-chair, and then also with just one of the other committee members to make sure it seems like a good fit.
Yeah, that's a great idea too. And also just kind of, as you were saying all that, it made me think about college students as well. Like one of my, in my marketing campaigns project when I was in college was to work with the local chapter of Keep America Beautiful. They were launching a new community garden. And so it was like my job to basically do that whole, the marketing campaign for them. And that could be, a way that you could utilize someone under. I wasn't on a junior board or an associate board, but I think had they formed one and been like, oh, would you like to be on this junior board and help, I totally would have been down for it, because college kids are looking for that. They're also looking for experience.
And sometimes they need volunteer hours in order to graduate.
Exactly.
That's actually something that came up yesterday in our meeting, is even us forming more of a relationship with the local colleges and universities, especially for volunteers, because they're usually very eager to help because they want to build their portfolio. They want to add things to their resume. And of course, then you find out that they will be connected to your mission and really want to follow through. And it's just like a great marriage of opportunity.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess kind of just to wrap up, the final question would be, if you had to pick like a couple of like the 2 biggest things why you think a junior board benefits a nonprofit, what would you say the 2 biggest benefits are?
Yeah, I would say the biggest one is just getting a younger group, especially for a lot of nonprofits, if they just have a board of directors and a lot of their supporters might be middle-aged or older. I would say it's really important to get newer generations involved, especially if you want to see, or when you want to see how successful you're going to be in the next 20, 30, 40 years, is making those relationships earlier, realizing that people getting involved will just cultivate a really nice relationship for the future. I think maybe you won't see the full benefits of it within the first few years, but I think it's really inspiring to have people who are volunteering their time on the side, who are really excited about certain things, and you realize what you can leverage from each person in the group. And each associate committee is going to be so different because it really just depends on who's going to be included in it.
Right.
But I think that at its foundation it's really exciting to get younger people involved in your mission who you can depend on for things like needing volunteers, needing people to post to social media for you, and really just kind of going from there. I would say the second one is just getting newer, fresh ideas, and then knowing that they can kind of take a hold of those ideas and run with them, so it's not a burden on your organization. Especially if you have a smaller nonprofit team, especially like Hearts of Gold, they're not going to try to do a workout class because they're running a learning center for one of the homeless shelters, and they need to focus on that. And so the opportunity for the associate committee to come in and be like, great, this is what we're going to take ownership of. Maybe we're not directly working with the people that are benefiting from Hearts of Gold, but we know that we're helping them in the long run. And for us too, we'd like to balance volunteer events with events that are just networking or community building within the young professional group in New York City. And it is striking that balance that is also really important, is making sure people feel connected to your mission, but then they can help in their own realm to make sure you're really making your mission successful.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you. I know that I learned a lot, so
great.
Everyone else did too. We appreciate your time, Megan.
Thank you.
And yeah, see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye.